Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't, okay, I see everybody, sorry.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Extended Learning and Community Engagement Committee. This morning, we are going to be talking about the EAN, non-credit education, and the 60-year curriculum. This is one of the topics that's very important for us to discuss as we look at Northern's strategic plan and Northern's mission and vision. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Vice President Steve Vandenhoven to walk us through some of the issues with non-credit education and to tell us a little bit more about Northern Michigan University's offerings in the non-credit education area and how that fits in with Northern's vision for the future. So Dr. Vandenhoven.
Thank you, Chair Sevoy. So as Tammy and I were discussing, you know, kind of what we wanted the conversation to revolve around for this meeting, Tammy thought, and I agree, that that some of the issues in revolving the updating of the extended learning mission and vision that we talked about last time might be a good idea. So where this conversation will go is it will end up at a brief conversation again of the 60-year curriculum, which not only is going to be part of the update of the extended learning strategic plan, it's going to be a theme that runs throughout the plan. If you remember the last time that we talked in a formal setting, we talked a lot about the credit side of extended learning. Brad Hamill was with me, and we talked a little bit about the rationale for establishing the global campus and how far we've come with not only the academic credit-bearing offerings in the global campus, but the student services as well. And we're getting to sort of a fork in the road where we've kind of picked the low-hanging fruit, and post-COVID, our strategy for the global campus is going to have to change significantly. So as Tammy said, this is sort of the flip side of the coin. I'd like to talk a little bit today about the non-credit side of extended learning and community engagement. So as you know, extended learning is about engaging people in the university who can't come to campus, mainly working adults. But as we've discussed, not only do adult students need alternative formats to learn, like online synchronous and asynchronous, and many of the formats that we're exploring right now during the pandemic, they also need, or at least prefer, different curricular and course formats, smaller, stackable credentials and accelerated courses that meet the lifestyles of working adult students who, as we've discussed before, and we have that infographic, which is again in your packet, you know, they've got a whole host of issues going on. Many of them are working, they may have aging parents, they may have children in the home, they may be getting promoted at work. And so the life of an adult online student is completely different than our traditional on-campus students. If you remember, we often use the analogy for where higher education is going with regard to online adult students in terms of a delivery service, like an Amazon delivery service. And so not only are the methods that we're using to deliver the education changing, the packages themselves are changing. They're getting smaller, they're delivered faster, they're delivered with more frequency, and they're more stackable credentials. So another flexibility, however, that students, online adults, students are looking for is the flexibility to switch between credit and non-credit educational options. And with the ability to articulate between the two, so that if they engage in some non-credit educational opportunity, that there's at least the potential that if they decide to pursue a credit credential, that the work and the learning that they've done on the non-credit side would somehow articulate into some sort of credit. So again, today's discussion will end up at the topic of the 60-year curriculum, which, as you know, blurs the line between academic and non-academic learning, or at least is a model that articulates between the two. And as Tammy stated, the 60-year curriculum is not only a goal in our, will not only be a goal in our new strategic plan, it's going to be a theme that permeates the entire plan. So Kathy, could you advance the slide, please? So again, I always like to start with reminding ourselves what extended learning and community engagement looks like. These are the 6 major areas that we cover. I don't mean to be patronizing. I've gotten in the habit of showing this every time just so that we have a common starting place. Kathy, could you advance this slide, please? And again, the DNA we've discussed in the division, this is sort of at the core of what we do, almost like the values for extended learning and community engagement. This will come up again as we discuss and review the mission and vision of the division, as well as updating the strategic plan. So you'll see more of those as we engage you in the strategic planning process. Next, Kathy, please. And this is the infographic that you've grown to know and love. A reminder of the kind of people that we serve, right? Online, mainly working adults with completely different needs, not only in terms of academic programs, but in terms of the format and the delivery systems for those programs and the student services that we have to support them through their journey, not only through their academic journey, but through their journey as they learn throughout a lifetime. Okay, next slide, please. So one of the more recent conversations that we had involved a discussion of some of the initiatives taking place at ASU and what we're doing at Northern that parallel those initiatives at ASU. And as you recall, ASU's mission actually points out or has embedded in it that the university counts its success not by who it excludes, but by who it includes. And I think you have undoubtedly heard President Erickson say the same thing about NMU. And in my opinion, I think we have an even stronger case to make that statement. We have what I think is an extremely strong access story at Northern and a long history with regard to access at Northern. And so whether we're talking about the laptop program, which is an access issue to technology and learning. The number of academic programs that we have is an access issue. If you can't find an area of study that fits you at Northern, you might not be looking very hard. The low cost of attendance, or relatively low cost, and the great value of the education that we provide is an extreme access issue, and it's going to become even more of an issue as the cost of higher education increases. And the variety of formats that we have is an access issue, or our student-centered transfer program, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, and how involved our registrar was in establishing that is an access issue. And I think the things that we're doing at Northern that we've done for a long time all point to providing access to students to the education that we have. So as you know, the EAN is not just a nationally known wireless internet access system. It includes a series of non-credit modules that subscribers to the EAN get for free. So the EAN is not only the internet system, it's the educational offerings embedded in that package. These educational offerings were designed a lot like MOOCs, and if you remember our comparison to the ASU initiatives, they're involved in MOOCs with companies like Coursera and edX, and they're actually finding ways to award academic credit for educational experiences that involve MOOCs. So our EAN modules were meant to sort of mimic the Coursera or edX model, in that they're largely self-paced and auto-scored, much like what you would find in one of those in a Coursera or edX offering. They're much smaller. We call them LUCs. So instead of massive online open course, it's a local online open course, and that it's only available. Most of them are only available to our to our subscribers. So I think it's important to understand that, MOOCs aren't dead. I'm sure you've read a lot about how MOOCs just don't exist anymore. Coursera and edX are becoming increasingly popular. And again, there are institutions that are finding ways to articulate between those educational experiences and academic credit. So I think MOOCs just didn't take over all of higher education and take over the world like some of us feared they would, because nobody really figured out a business model for making them viable. A viable way to give away education, right? But dozens of colleges and universities are partnering with Coursera and edX and are awarding academic credit for MOOC experiences. So many of the concepts embedded in MOOCs, like self-paced, auto-scored learning, are still very much alive and well in higher education. So again, the EAN modules are much shorter than most MOOCs, and they were developed as a result of three main areas. One is community need, topics that were of interest to local community members. The second was business needs in terms of either personal finance, economics, or business. And the third was university partnerships that we developed primarily with the Department of Health and Human Services, who asked us to make some online self-paced auto-scored modules for diabetes and heart health education. So in addition to the smaller free non-credit modules embedded within the EAN, within the past couple of years, we've added some fee-based offerings to the EAN. That are much more rigorous and in-depth and complex than the free EAN offerings. For example, Kathy, can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. So for example, the Cybersecurity Institute, the increasing menu of cybersecurity courses offered out of the UP Cybersecurity Institute provide learners with skills that they need to sit for industry certification exams. And you'll hear a little bit more about some of the specifics listed in this slide this afternoon when there's an update with regard to the cybersecurity efforts overall. But the industry credentials help students gain entry into this high demand, high paying sector. You'll also recall that last summer, we embarked on a partnership with Greenflower Incorporated to provide non-credit online cannabis-related coursework in the areas of the business of cannabis, cannabis healthcare and medicine, cannabis law and policy, and cannabis agriculture and horticulture. And those non-credit fee-based online offerings have been wildly successful. In fact, as you know, we're looking to start an online credit program related to plant wellness this coming fall. And then third, applied behavior analysis. We have a series of non-credit online offerings that will be fee-based that were developed by Dr. Ashley Shader. And will meet the needs for training entry-level students to be able to deliver applied behavior analysis services like those provided in the Bear Center. And again, these will be fee-based. So in addition to the free non-credit offerings, we have a series of growing fee-based non-credit offerings being offered out of the division. And what we're doing, I think, with online continuing education is wonderful, and we made a concerted effort a couple of years ago to move more to online simply because of the saturation of the local market in terms of need for continuing education workforce development services. And so we decided to do more online so that we could reach a wider audience. And I think we've done a good job and we've positioned ourselves to weather the COVID storm But an element of what we're doing that I think is equally important is as we build out these fee-based online non-credit offerings, is that we're trying to align them with the curriculum that we find in our academic programs, so that if a person does engage in some non-credit experience, for example, through the Cybersecurity Institute, that if they decide they want a credit credential, that they could articulate that experience into some sort of academic credential. And the math doesn't always work up, right? So the way that we do it now is you either have everything that you need in order to test out of or get credit for prior learning for an entire course, or you get nothing. So if you've met 3 out of the 4 competencies in any one academic course, you either have to work it out with the instructor to do extra work to make up for that 1 credit, or you basically get no credit for the course and you have to take it all over again, which adult students just don't want to do. And other places are finding other universities are finding ways to more clearly articulate between non-credit and credit offerings. So we're working really hard with the College of Business and Dr. Mark Watson to make sure that what we're offering in cybersecurity could articulate into some sort of academic credit within that college. Again, the Cannabis Studies program, online, non-credit right now. We've been developing our online cannabis plant wellness program so that it will articulate very closely with those cannabis offerings. And applied behavior analysis the same way. Ashley has developed that curriculum so that if a student decides that they not only want to get training to be an RBT, an entry-level applied behavior analyst, that they could articulate that experience into some sort of academic credit if they wanted to pursue a degree. So what we're really doing is we're trying to position ourselves to really develop a 60-year curriculum model within extended learning and community engagement. So Kathy, the next slide, please. So you might remember a similar infographic when we talked about cybersecurity during the past 18 months to 2 years. Cybersecurity is our first kind of pilot attempt at, again, trying to find ways to align the educational experiences between the credit and non-credit side. So that if a student wants to get on either path at any one point in their lifetime, they can do so synergistically and without losing any sort of credit or having to take educational experiences over again. As you know, at the heart of the 60-year curriculum concept is that formal learning is going to happen over a lifetime as the nature of work changes, as content and skill demands for jobs change, as the frequency with which people change jobs increases, as life expectancies increase and the number of years that Americans work is going to expand up into this 60 years plus. Thus the name, the 60-year curriculum. It's really a new way of thinking about higher education with the goal of developing the most nimble higher education model possible that's responsive to what the workforce needs as work changes constantly. And it's really it's a lifelong learning education model that's structured and much more formal than the way that we've used it and that concept in the past. So, as you know from reading the book, some of the elements of the 60-year curriculum model are, again, more connections between continuing education and academic programs, micro-credentials and badges, smaller units of learning that can stack up, portable transcripts where students can take their transcript and wherever they wish, degrees and credentials that sort of move with the student rather than staying at an institution. A variety of ways for students to learn, like what we're doing now during the pandemic, whether it's online, asynchronous or synchronous or face-to-face, off-campus. And more short courses that emphasize specific job skills, both hard skills and soft skills. and courses that are accessible, not only in terms of the convenience of the formats, but that are lower cost. So again, one of the nuts that we're trying to crack as we build out the non-credit side of our educational offerings is making sure that there's clear alignment with the credit credentials that we have on campus. And this, again, is an element of the 60-year curriculum that will not only be one of the goals of our new strategic plan, it's going to be a theme that really permeates the entire plan. And we'll look to you to help to figure out how it might be involved in the review of the mission and vision of the division as well. So those are my comments with regard to the non-credit side of what we do in extended learning. Are there any questions, or better yet, is there any discussion with regard to the non-credit offerings?
Thank you, Steve. One of the questions I have is whether you have been contacted by employers who are looking for some way to put their current workers in a position to learn more about different things. Cybersecurity is one that I would think or expect to see some of this, but I just wonder if you have any comment on that.
Yeah, we hear from businesses quite often with regard to continuing education for their employees. You know, it's continuing education and workforce development. That office on campus has traditionally served the local industries. And a lot of that business came from the mines. And as you know, some of that, the business of the mines, it sort of fluctuates, right? And there are years where they need a lot of continuing education for their folks, and there are years where they just don't hardly need any at all, which is why one of the reasons we decided to put a lot of this online, so that as that business fluctuates, we can reach out to other businesses. But you're right, cybersecurity is an example of one of those areas where we have a lot of businesses in the region that can't really afford to hire a cybersecurity expert on staff, or to farm out that work, and they need some basic training for their IT people within their business. You know, some of these, as you know, some of these small businesses, the IT person might be doing HR and IT and cybersecurity all at the same time. So yeah, that is an area where we've tried to respond to regional demand.
Thank you. We have trustees Alexis Hart and Donna Marie Brown, who are members of these committees. Alexis, Donna, do either of you have questions for Steve?
No, this is Donna. No, I don't have any questions. I always appreciate learning and being regrounded in that. And I quite frankly think that this is an area where there's great opportunity for partnership. And so you've provided examples of that and the structure. And so just really look forward to digging into this and expanding this and developing the right partnerships to expand the offerings.
Thank you. I look forward to it as well.
I agree with the comments made by Trustee Marie Brown. I think that if there was ever a time for us to be focusing in this area, this is the time. And with the environment that we're in, I think we can only again grow, expand, and figure out, you know, where all of those opportunities are to make sure that we're driving this in the right direction and making it, you know, a key success factor for Northern.
Thank you. We are also running up on the next meeting, which will be starting in 5 minutes. So unless there's anything further, I would like to thank you very much, Steve, for your presentation. I think it's very helpful for everyone to see the meshing of Northern's purpose in the EAN and the non-credit offerings, both with those which are free educational offerings and also those that are for fee-based. I think it helps us all to understand Northern's mission in this and how we move forward. So thank you very much. It is 9:26, and I would like to call this meeting of the Extended Learning and Community Engagement Committee to a close. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, do we have everyone we need to get started? I don't see Norma.
No, I don't see Norma yet either.
Okay.
Oh, there she is. Alexis, you can start in a minute. I just let Norma in, so give her just 1 minute and you're ready to go.
All right, fantastic. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call together a formal meeting of the Northern Michigan University Academic Affairs Committee. The first, well, it's 9:31 a.m. on December 11th. The first order of business is an update from Norma Froelich, the chair of the Academic Senate. Norma?
Right, thank you very much, Alexis. So since I last presented to you in October, both the Senate and the Senate Executive have been quite busy. We've met 3 additional times and have been active reviewing reports from all of our standing committees. This semester, our work has mostly been focused on curriculum proposals and on academic and admissions policies. The debate's been lively at times, but all recommendations that we forwarded on to the Provost Schuling have now been approved. In terms of curriculum, based on the work of the Committee on Undergraduate Programs, the Senate has recommended 5 new courses, changes to 10 courses, and changes to 7 academic programs and 1 new minor in multimedia journalism. And that's replacing an old electronic journalism minor that was removed. Committee on Undergraduate Programs is continuing to evaluate proposals, and Senate anticipates reviewing all of those within the first few meetings in the winter semester. The Grad Programs Committee has also been considerably active this year, as they've been reviewing 2 proposed master's programs and 3 proposed PhD programs, in addition to changes to existing programs, new courses, and so forth. None of that all of that still needs to be reviewed by the Senate and possibly also by the Educational Policy Committee. In addition to work evaluating curriculum changes, we've reviewed 3 proposals submitted by the Admissions and Academic Policy Committee. These include a recommendation that certification of finances no longer be an admission requirement for international students, that certification is still required for them to enter the country. They need it later on, not at the admissions time, but when they start the program here. We also approved a recommendation to change language in the bulletin and in the Bachelor of Science in Nursing handbooks to ensure professional competencies in those programs. And we approved a recommendation to permanently adopt a policy that was temporarily adopted back in April 2020 because of COVID. That policy removes ACT/SAT scores as a factor in freshman admissions. Other Senate actions have been included filling open seats on Senate standing committees and recommendation of grad faculty status to a number of faculty. Senate will continue meeting bi-weekly throughout the winter semester. We anticipate a busy year of curricular change proposals at both the undergrad and graduate levels, and possibly more academic policy changes arising from the pandemic. We'll also be reviewing the operating procedures of several of our standing committees, including how we handle new programs and how those get dealt with both by the Educational Policy Committee that reviews kind of the financial aspects, and by the Senate, which reviews the curriculum aspects and how we deal with. They are 2 interrelated parts that are reviewed by 2 separate committees. I welcome any comments or questions about the Senate both now and if anyone is interested in attending throughout the year. We do also welcome guests to attend our Senate meetings in the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Question for you. You know, with the pandemic situation, it sounds like obviously there's been a lot of work around kind of reviewing what we have from a policy perspective, and I think we've made some fantastic changes. Have we, with the new courses being presented and looking at new programs, do you think any of those are a direct result of kind of the situation that we're currently in, that's highlighted a need for different things based on the pandemic situation and maybe how we may be moving forward in the future of education and or, you know, the workplaces of offerings that we can give to our students?
At this point, I'd say actually, no, none of the curriculum proposals were explicitly dealing with that. I mean, they were submitted by departments in October 1st was the deadline for the submission by departments. And so we were still not entirely sure what was going on there. I'd say most of the curriculum changes are more dealing with just growth of the departments over the last couple of years, replacements to faculty that retired 2, 3, 4 years ago, changes in terms of what's the career possibilities and so on. So they haven't yet reflected the pandemic, and that's
very good. And just another question from my side. You know, the change in the policy on the SAT, ACT scores. Can you just talk a little bit more about kind of the discussion around that and the precipice for, you know, making a change to that?
Yeah, so that is part of really a nationwide trend moving away from ACT and SAT scores. A lot of universities have found that there isn't necessarily a correlation between what the score is there and whether the student is likely to finish. And Jason Nicholas in institutional research looked at that data for Northern specifically, and there isn't a strong predictive value of ACT, SAT scores on progress through degree. What ACT, SAT scores do reflect more often than not is actually socioeconomic status. So it biases against lower socioeconomic groups. We did discuss whether there are some people here who benefit from having ACT, SAT scores included, and there will still be an option that, you know, if they're maybe not, they don't make it in based on high school GPA or other things like that, or high school grades, they can maybe still send in their ACT scores after the fact if they have them and say, you know, use them if useful, but they're not required.
Okay.
I guess
Very
the other concern we did have with it was that those scores are used in some other places. They are used after the students get here for math placement. They are used still, or they have been used previously for things like the presidential scholars. Those are being replaced. So they're working on changing those procedures as well. So.
Norma, do you have an indication when we say that this is really a nationwide movement and phenomenon that we're seeing here? And I think, again, it's a positive one. And you may not know the answer off the top of your head, and that's okay if you don't. But, you know, from a Michigan perspective, do we know, you know, is it a 50-50 that they're using them? Is it a 75-25 or even nationwide, what those numbers are looking like for those scores, if they're using those scores or not?
I'll say I know it was in the report that Jason Nicholas had provided to the admissions office that got sent onwards, and I cannot remember the numbers. So.
No problem. No problem. Very good. Trustee Brown, Trustee Fatante, any questions, comments?
Just a comment. Actually, you asked the question I had was around what was kind of the headlines for the changes in the curriculum. So thank you for answering that. And I would like to take you up on your invitation to attend one of the Senate meetings. I'm really interested in learning. So thank you for the invitation.
Okay, yeah. I look forward to seeing you at one of them then.
I don't have any questions, Alexis.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Norma, thank you very much. I know it's been an incredible year for everyone. Lots of moving parts, lots of challenges and opportunities I think that we're all facing, and appreciate your service and hard work as the chairperson of the Academic Senate.
Thanks.
The next order of business is a brief update that I'm going to be providing with respect to charter schools. So on December 7th, the Academic Affairs Committee received an update from Casey Holder on charter schools. In that meeting, we received notifications of upcoming renewal applications for Burton Glen Academy as well as Walton Academy. Nothing to be done at this point. Additionally, we had an opportunity to discuss the performance framework. As we'll hear a common theme throughout much of the reports. I mean, there's been a lot of changes and need for, revisiting, how we're doing things and looking at dashboards with the current pandemic. Additionally, we discussed the enrollment numbers across all of the charter schools. Specifically, we looked at enrollment numbers between spring of 2020 versus fall of 2020. Numbers across those charter schools in general are very steady. We've got some dips in some, we've got some increases in others, but overall enrollment's very steady. And I'd just like to say also that, Casey has done an excellent job at the oversight of these charter schools, in addition to being very proactive in addressing, how we're looking at things, how we're doing things, making sure that we're following the appropriate protocols within the schools right now with everything going on. So, thank you, Casey, very much for, your support and leadership on this in a very unusual time. Are there any questions, comments as it relates to the charter schools update?
Just wanted to say that it seems that also to be noted with the enrollment staying steady is that it also is an indicator of the support that's given to the parents as well as to the students. And so just want to acknowledge that the transition that students had to undergo this year is it's a holistic one that includes family. And so it's interesting to know that the numbers have stayed steady, which is in my mind an indicator of how we've also been addressing the needs of the family in this changing environment. So just wanted to acknowledge that as well.
Excellent point. Thank you, Donna. Lisa, any questions or comments from your side?
I have none. Thank you.
Okay. Short and sweet. With that, if there's no other questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the Academic Affairs Committee. It's 9:43 a.m. on 12/11, December 11th, 2020. Thank you, everyone.